Hi, this is Tammy Brunk with Astrology for Earth Renewal, and I am wanting to give kind of an overview of what's going on for us in July of 2019, this coming month, beginning today. And wow, is it ever an intense month? We have got so much going on. I was just trying to even begin to grok it, and it's a big month. So just want to start by talking about the night sky and what's happening with the night sky over the course of the month. It's pretty spectacular. So just wanting to encourage any and all of you, if you have the opportunity to spend time under the night sky, if you're really adventurous to actually sleep under the night sky. I know many people have never had the experience of actually sleeping under the stars, but if that's possible for you, or even, if you wake up in the middle of the night to go out and look and see what's going on, this is a good time for that. So what's happening in the night sky right now is that we have Jupiter still pretty close to rising in the east as the sun is setting in the west every night. And so Jupiter is an evening star, and it's actually also fairly close to the center of the galaxy, or the thickest part of the Milky Way band. So you can see Jupiter kind of rising all night. It's kind of setting, it's rising and culminating all night, and then setting as the sun rises in the east. And this is also the time of year, which is pretty spectacular, where the Milky Way galaxy is kind of stretched from east to west over us in the course of the night. And so for many original peoples here in the Americas, and as well as in other cultures, the Milky Way was seen as kind of the road, or the highway, or the path that the souls travel when they're birthed at the edge of the galaxy, which is where the sun is close to located even still now. And then also when the sun sets, that's where the souls go. When we pass from this world, we go to the center of the galaxy, which again at this time is rising in the east when the sun sets. And then, so again, we can see that beautiful Milky Way galaxy all night. So then also what's happening is that we have Saturn. As of the 8th of July, Saturn is going to be setting, or it's going to be rising as the sun sets. So it's going to be in opposition with the sun. So we're going to start seeing Saturn also as an evening star. Mars and Mercury right now are really close to the horizon in the west, and both of them will be soon disappearing into the beams of the sun. And so they'll both be kind of traveling in you could say the underworld with the sun very soon. And Venus is in the morning sky, and she's very dim at this time in the morning sky, very close to the horizon. And she will soon be also disappearing into the beams of the sun. And so that's all going to happen this month, where Mars and Venus are going to disappear into the sun's glare. And in a journey that the ancient timekeepers would have seen as being a time when the sacred masculine and the sacred feminine in many cultures are in the underworld, or undergoing a ceremonial death and rebirth process. And that's going to last through the summer. So that's a big activation, something that to pay attention to. We also are having, obviously this month it's a big deal because we've got a very potent short 2-week eclipse window, which will open tomorrow afternoon with the total solar eclipse. It's the first total solar eclipse we've had since the big event here in the US on August 21st of 2017. So this eclipse tomorrow is a very potent one because, again, it's that first total solar eclipse we've had in 2 years. It's not visible here in the US. It's actually visible down at the kind of, I've been actually seeing the Americas as almost like as a human in a way, with the head at the the top part of the North America, and the feet at the southern tip. And so we've got Argentina and Chile are the areas where you could see the whole total eclipse of the sun. And then there are areas in South America and the Pacific where they can see it partially. Most of us won't see it, but we can go online and look at it if we want to tune in. Regardless of whether you can see it or not, we can all work with it ceremonially. And this eclipse is at 10 degrees Cancer. So it is aligned with Alhena, which is a star in the left foot of the Twins constellation. Now, when I think of the left foot, I want to think about the left side of the body corresponds to the right brain. It corresponds to the goddess or the sacred feminine. So I might even ask the question, how is it that this total solar eclipse, which is with the North Node, it's very progressive. It's like a super new moon. It's a time for us to plant seeds for the future. It's in the sign of Cancer. So it has to do with nurturing. It has to do with really coming from a place of care and kindness for our fellow human beings and our more than human Earth community. And so, you know, how is it that we can step forward into the future in a positive way? How can we begin to vision into the future and imagine a future that's positive, that's healing, that is safe for the children and the vulnerable among us? And this is an important eclipse, even though we can't see it here in the U.S. Again, it's the next one that follows the big Great American Eclipse that was transiting the very center point of Turtle Island of North America. And it also happens to be just less than 3 degrees from exactly conjunct the sun in the natal chart for the US as a nation. So it's really kind of getting to the heart of asking the question, how can we really restore and realign with the spiritual original intent here in the US of what we're here for, how we're actually here collectively to evolve the human species, the human experience. So we might take time tomorrow for our own intention setting, for planting seeds personally in our lives, and to really take the time for uplifting, to really consider what it is we want to grow more of in our lives and in our communities and in our closest relationships. And we also may want to spend some time really envisioning and getting still and sending out big prayers for if we're here in the U.S., for this country, for this nation comprised of many nations, and that we really recover our soul, that we really recover the sense of care and what our potential is, that we begin to do that. And I think part of that is to acknowledge that no matter what, even if you watch the news and you are really caught up in what's happening externally, that you also pay attention to what's happening at the level of the local, at what's happening that's positive in this country in terms of people waking up, looking at what's happening on our borders right now with the concentration camps basically that are at our borders, what's happening there right now in this moment. This is something many of us are waking up to. From what I've heard from people on the border, there are a lot of people who are getting engaged right now or trying, which is a very positive thing, even though the local organizations there doing the work on the ground need a lot of financial support. Just putting that plug out there, because if we want to activate care and a new kind of caring family culture here in the US, that is one way to actively do that. And you know, Cancer is a cardinal sign, it's a householder sign. It has to do with actually taking action in this 3D reality middle world. So that's one thing you can do. If people want, I can send links. I can post links for different organizations that are doing work on the ground if you want to give some funding for that. But the solar eclipse tomorrow is a time to plant seeds personally and collectively, to ask, how can I be a nurturer in this world? And part of that is to ask the question, how can I awaken the inner mother within to nourish myself, to practice self-care. If I'm depleted, if I'm giving to everyone around me and I'm not taking time to really fill my well, then do that. If I've been doing a lot of self-care and nurturing, to ask the question, who maybe is close to me, who could really use some of my support. You know, I've been sending a lot of prayers to people lately because there are a lot of people who, you know, as these accelerated times just kind of continue, a lot of people who are experiencing a tremendous amount of rapid change and loss. So sometimes just reaching out and saying, hey, how are you doing, can be really helpful. And so again, finding that balance between self and other, and always self-compassion. It's something that we're really called for. We're called to more and more and more in these times. And equally self-compassion, and then extending that outward into the world around us. So so that eclipse tomorrow is a big deal. And then we have also it's a 2-week eclipse window. So the next eclipse is a partial lunar eclipse that is going to be It's exact the 16th and 17th, depending on your time zone. And that eclipse is very significant because it's going to be activating what I'm calling the Capricorn convergence, which is Saturn, South Node, and Pluto, all in the sign of Capricorn at their closest that they've been for 2,200 years in the sign of Capricorn. So they're traveling together all year, but Saturn and the South Node are conjunct July 4th. So this is it's a big activation. It's massive. What it has to do with is, first of all, the South Node. The way I've been seeing this is it's kind of like it's like a shovel or a spade. If you look at the glyph, it makes this kind of, it's like a downward pointing glyph. And the way I've been seeing and feeling it is that it has to do with the past. It has to do with lineage. It has to do with the origination point. It's in the sign of Capricorn. So it's helping us to dive down deep through the layers of human history and culture. And so I see it almost as like a shovel or a spade dipping down into the earth or the soil of human civilization and culture. Part of what's happening with that, part of what we're experiencing is that it is activating the layers of the soil that are patriarchy, that are the kind of species-wide trauma of colonization, of patriarchy that we've been in the middle of. And so part of what this may be experienced as is that we're having these really strange experiences with time and almost feeling like the echoes from the past of, in some cases, very horrific historic events. For example, again, what are those images we're seeing from our border here in the US right now? What is this reminding us of? And so with Saturn, with the South Node in Capricorn, we are literally, it's as if we're really hearing from our ancestors and considering what they've experienced. And so when we go into a place of fight or flight, when we go into a place of profound panic or anxiety, and let me tell you, that is a very common experience for many people right now. For many people right now, it has to do with finances. It has to do with many people are struggling economically. And so there's this kind of survival fear that comes up that can be very, very real. So it is something that we're navigating personally, but not only that, it's that we're remembering in some sense. It's almost like our ancestors who have lived through times that have been very extreme. We're also hearing and feeling what they're going through. And I almost said healing because it does feel to me like that's a big part of what this time is for us, is ancestral healing. And so if we can learn, I know for myself, I've been spending some time with my family, hearing stories about my ancestors and what they went through, having more of a conversation with them, considering, their life experience and what they went through, and considering as well what I myself am experiencing. And what I've found is that, so we live in a time where many of us have increasing access to some states of profound joy and ecstasy and aliveness at a level, and connection at a level we haven't ever experienced before. So we have those highs, and then we have these experiences that can feel really low, like just, again, panic, anxiety, fear. I don't know what the hell I'm doing next. I don't know how to take care of my family. So there can be those big highs and lows. And so I feel like for anyone who has the capability of seeking support in lots of ways on a very regular basis, so that you're not isolated, so that you're not going through so much alone. That's really important right now. So that can be finding a dear friend or a family member and making it a practice every week or more often to really have heart-to-heart conversations. If you know the tool of co-counseling, you can use that practice. If you can't afford to go to a therapist, I do think if you can afford to go to a therapist or do some kind of exchange or trade, it's a really good time for that. A good one that really can help you, many of us, to tap into using tools that are more somatic, more about embodiment. So if that's something that works for you, that it's a good time to be gaining that kind of support. If you don't have that, to find a way to gather also with friends, with community at the new moon, at the full moon, to just sharing. This is very Cancerian, what I'm talking about. Just take time with people, but also one-on-one, just to spend time just speaking from the heart about what's hard and about what's beautiful in your life. It's not a time to isolate. It's simply not a good time for that. It's a good time for connecting with others who you feel really safe with, to learn to be emotionally vulnerable. It's a good time for taking time for stillness, to really listen deep to the voice of your feminine soul. It's a time to really be open to what might be coming next. And also, it's a tricky thing, because we don't want to go into spiritual bypass, which means that we're always trying to focus on what's positive, and so that we're in denial about what's hard. But in balance to the need to reach out for support and to be able to speak to what is challenging for us, we are also being invited to become very aware of the ways that our minds can go into a lot of a spin and a lot of a story, and the difference between that and the actual experience of inviting healing, which can be about getting more childlike in the way we talk about our experience and saying, I feel really sad right now, or I feel this in my belly and it feels yucky, or, it sounds silly, but, again, I'm going to bring it back to the South Node in Capricorn. We're all doing a lot of healing right now, personally and collectively. All the healing we do is also helping heal our ancestors. It's also helping to do the work so our children and our grandchildren or our descendants don't have to do that work don't have to do it like we do. So part of that, again, is just contacting our very human emotion and instinct and feeling things, making it safe to do that for ourselves and others. So the way I've been seeing that with ancestral lineage healing is that when I hear a story about my aunt recently who committed suicide, and I just heard that story in more detail, I'm now kind of dropping in and almost having a conversation with her and saying, wow, like, I'm just imagining how that might have felt for her when she was a child, the experiences she had that were so hard. And it's like I can journey and actually visit her and connect with her. I look at pictures and I just be there with her. I just witness that in her. And I also recognize, wow, that anxiety I feel, that depression I feel, that's Aunt Pat too, inside of me. And if I can get really visceral about the way I connect with her and create space for her to tell her story, and then I can also do that with my own life timeline. I've been revisiting experiences I had as a child with a family member I loved that was very painful. Then I also go back to that me from that age, and I hold really loving presence, and I feel what she felt, and I speak to her and I witness for her. So there's something that's actually very similar about those two experiences, and these kinds of things are coming together. We're doing some really deep healing around this. So, wow, I didn't intend to talk for this long about this, but it's just been coming up, and it's been so big for me, and I think for many of us. So that's what I'm speaking to, is a larger astrological current or theme throughout the year. But it's really big right now because Saturn and the South Node are almost exactly conjunct right now in Capricorn, and that's exact July 4th. So, and the eclipse, 16th and 17th of July, is going to also be activating that for us. So those are some of the big events. Also, it's important to recognize that we are kind of in a field of shared dreaming, collective dreaming. I see this as a very positive thing, where we can open, even though we're doing a lot of the deeper work and we're here to learn to ground in the place of emotion and our physical bodies. We need that grounding. We also, again, have access to these experiences of profound connection with the earth around us, with the alive, sentient, conscious earth. There are openings for us now. This is a very magical month where we can spend time in nature, and we can deeply listen to the song or the voice of the plants, of the trees, of the stars, of our relatives. In this earth around us, we can open our inner ear to remember what our ancestors knew, is that, again, this is part of our larger family. And we can have ecstatic experiences of connection with those things. And so that's something to connect to. I sometimes see that as the dreaming world. It's the world behind the world. It's the world we've been cut off from. I see that cut off, the ways that our world has been disenchanted, as the base level core wound for humanity that has caused us ultimately to be such an addicted culture and so dissociative as a whole. And so that it's a time for that. And it's a time to also be paying attention to our dreams, our night dreams, our day visions. Again, create space for stillness, for deep listening. And the reason I say that is because Jupiter is square Neptune. That's something that's been happening all year, but it's quite close right now. And Jupiter expands whatever it touches, and Neptune is the planet of visions, of dreams. It helps us connect to the oneness of all things. So that's a big aspect this summer. And also Jupiter is in a part of the sky that's very close to Ophiuchus, which is the serpent bearer, which also has a connection to Asclepius, the ancient Greek dream healer. And so we also can be healing through our dreams. And, I would really highly recommend to people that in part of what I'm encouraging in terms of reaching out, not isolating, but gathering the people, your soul family around you, share your dreams, share your night dreams, share your visions, speak to those things. That's very important. So, and the other piece about this next month that really kind of demonstrates that we're in this, we're really opening to the worlds beneath the worlds, is not only the two eclipses, but also Mercury is retrograde, moving between two signs. So, from Leo to Cancer, and that's from the middle of the month, or the 7th, until the end of the month. So that also puts us in more of this kind of right brain, intuitive space where we're really ready to receive deeper insight and knowledge. Again, another reason to kind of slow down and go internal. And again, because it's two different signs during this Mercury retrograde, which is somewhat unusual, it's a threshold moment. So you can see where we're on a lot of edges here. There are many, many edges. If you think about that as a permaculture person, or someone who really likes to move between the worlds, we've got the edges of these two eclipses where the sun and the moon come together in a powerful way. You've got the edges of Mercury moving, retrograde. You've got and straddling two different signs. You've got Venus and Mars and Mercury, all three moving from visibility in the night sky into the underworld, where we cannot see them either in the morning or evening sky because they're with the sun. So there's a lot of thresholds. It's a very magical time. And it's a good time, again, to ground, to take some time for stillness, to connect with those of your deepest soul and heart connection, to do the deep ancestral healing, lineage healing that can be done, to connect deeply with the more than human world around you, to open to that ecstatic experience of profound connection. Again, to cultivate practices to keep your mind in a good place. And that can be partially through, again, having partners or people you can vent to, or you can talk about what's hard with. And then also practices of journaling, so you can see what those deeper kind of scary, hard messages are that keep coming up. Because for many of us, our deepest wounding is kind of an inner abuser who continually says things to us that are very, very painful, very hard, very abusive. So the reason I like to meditate and journal is because I can begin to catch those voices midstream and begin to see what those patterns are. And I've found journaling to be very useful lately, because I begin to see the pattern. I begin to see what those voices are saying. I begin to catch it midair. I begin to ask the question, is this really true? Is this really real? So it's a really good time to be paying attention to the patterns of our minds and of our beliefs. So there's one other aspect that's a big aspect, actually, there's two. On next week, the 8th, I believe, but it's something we'll feel for several days around this. We have Mars squaring Uranus. And so that's a really potent energy. Mars is very much this kind of outward moving, dynamic energy. It's in Leo, so it's a very potent masculine yang energy. You've got Uranus, which is also kind of can feel like it's helping us kind of wake up, but it can feel shocking sometimes when there's an activation. So again, next week, this is why I'm saying ground yourself. Ground yourself with others, ground yourself with meditative practices, walk barefoot on the earth, connect with trees, because there's some very profound, really kind of earth-shaking energies. And if we can be a center of coherence and of balance and of grounding, we are going to be of great benefit to those around us. Now, some of you listening, you might have so much going on in your world. You might be a single mom juggling 2 jobs, living a life that's really kind of impossible. It's a miracle that you do what you do. So thank you for being the miracle that you are. If it's hard for you to find the time and have the ability to really deeply ground, then reach out for help, reach out for those people who are anchors for you, who have had the space, the ability to ground themselves, to nurture themselves. And, the people that you can know and feel are pretty well sourced, and reach out and ask for help. And if you are well sourced, also look around and see, are there people close to you who are really struggling, and ask, how are you doing? Reach out. So that feels, these pieces feel like some of the most important to consider. Again, with Mars and with Mars and Uranus, the opportunity with that, beyond the fact that it could be some pretty intense energies that tell us ground, root, be solid and stable, is that it's an invitation to begin to take action and to move forward in the direction of our higher visions. And so that might be very subtle, moment to moment, day by day, as we're journaling, or when we wake up in the morning, we really ask Spirit, like, what am I to do today? And really follow that. But it can be a very forward moving energy if we work with it that way. We inform the mysteries as much as they inform us. So we can also ask that Uranus, this kind of awakening, the great initiator to help us awaken, to help us become conscious where we had previously been unconscious. When it's in a square to Mars, the sacred masculine, kind of the yang force in the world, we can ask that the masculine inside of each of us begin to awaken more and more to what's really true. We can ask again that this on another octave be a healing of whatever that inner colonizer or inner kind of wounded patriarch inside of us, to help that part of us wake up to what it's actually doing and become more conscious. And Uranus is in the sign of Taurus. So when I see Mars in Leo square Uranus in Taurus, my sense is that this Uranus and Taurus activation is about remembering to wake up to the reality that we live in heaven right now. This earth is absolutely exquisitely beautiful, alive, sentient. It doesn't get better than this. And how do we wake up to that? How do we live in that dream, that reality of the beauty that is this planet? And again, begin to be in conversation with it again. And so Mars square Uranus, it can be a bigger awakening and a seeding of what it is that our next actions are to really bring forward more of that sense of the garden of earthly delights, or understanding this earth is paradise, this earth is heaven. How do we awaken to that world within the world and live it more and more and more every day? Whether or not we live in a city, whether we live in a place where there's a lot of garbage or trash, or wherever it is that we live, that wherever it is that we travel, that we begin to see that and feel that no matter where we are. And if we are privileged, as some of us are, to live in a beautiful, safe, healthy place where the land, you can feel that the people on that land are caring for the land, that they love it. I would, in my world I want to live in, every single human has the experience of knowing how it is to live on land that is beloved by the people who live there. If that's not you, then if you can find places like that, that's powerful and beautiful. If it is you, if you have that, then also visit to places that aren't as well beloved and bring that anchoring that you have come into in yourself, because you have that relationship. Bless the land that you come into, anywhere you are, by remembering that spirit's there, that there are always the plants, the animals, the trees, the spirits of that land, no matter whether you're in New York City or wherever you are, they're there. So, sing to them, even if you do it silently, and speak to them and acknowledge the aliveness and the beauty in the world, beneath the world, everywhere you walk. Be that blessing that we as human beings are actually capable of being. Okay, and I think I spoke for much longer than I had intended about all of this, but I hope that's helpful. I guess there's one other thing, which is that, there's just so much happening around the 8th. There's so much happening next week. Again, Mercury retrograde, Venus disappearing in the underworld. And then the other thing is Chiron is stationing retrograde. Chiron is. And Chiron is also square Venus. So Chiron is the energy of the, Chiron was an ancient Greek centaur, a great physician, healer, astrologer, wise one. And Chiron is that great initiator, alive and awake in the world, especially when it's stationing retrograde, that invites us to break open our personal heart to allow whatever rawness and vulnerability and pain we may be feeling. If you are feeling that today, if you're feeling that over the next couple of weeks, you go into that place again where you feel maybe paralyzed or frozen or depressed or whatever that is, where you feel broken and you feel like you can't make it through. Soften for a moment if you can. Catch yourself in that and recognize, first of all, your ancestors have had that same feeling and experience, and kind of drop into a witnessing of that pain you feel, and know that you witnessing it and being with it, you might be the first human in your family line to actually be able to take a moment to be with it and feel it and hold presence for that with love. The other piece is to know that to the degree that you can simply hold presence with your own suffering, that when you do that, you can also offer that to all the other beings who are going through that same experience. So just know, whatever you're going through right now, again, it might be that you're really concerned about what your kids are going through in school. It might be that you're really struggling with finances and you don't know how to pay the bill. It can be many things. Know that there are many others who are going through exactly what you're going through, and in those moments where you can practice compassion for yourself and a witnessing to that, dedicate your capacity to hold your situation in love to all those who are experiencing that with you, because we are not alone in this together. We're in this together. So Chiron helps us to break open our human heart so that we experience, again, more of this connection, yes, of grief, of sorrow, but it's not grief and sorrow that is disconnected. It's a grief and sorrow that reweaves the connectedness between us and the rest of the world. So I think I'm just going to leave it at that. And thank you so much for all of you for being here. And I just wish you such a beautiful month in July, and just magic and healing and support and empowerment and strength, and just the awareness that, again, we're all in this together. So much love to you, and I hope that you have a beautiful month of July.